an hour ago. What? That was me an hour and 25 minutes in to the broadcast. Oh my gosh, she cooked me. You know how I say Piker Broadcasting News for tomorrow's news today? She did that to me. What the hell? What the hell? Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow, that's crazy. Having said that, I guess it's a perfect opportunity for us to go to the Leeja Miller video that just came out.
Hi, it's Saturday.
America's Hasan Piker Problem by Leeja Miller.
April 11th, 2026. You're tuned into a special Saturday edition of Why America? I'm your lawyer friend, Leeja Miller. This week, Dr. Abdul El Sayed, a progressive candidate running to represent Michigan in the U.S. Senate, was joined by Hasan Piker at a campaign rally at Michigan State University. Despite the fact that Trump was literally threatening to an entire country while stripping away crucial social safety nets to fund his pointless war of aggression in the Middle East, despite, all the horrors, the Democratic establishment was more incensed and up in arms about
I've never tried this root beer before. I'm about to. A&W.
Stumping for a progressive candidate than they were about pretty much anything else this week. And hey, guess what? Prior to this week, I had never heard of Dr. Abdul El Sayed. Weird. It's almost like he's successfully campaigning for a seat in the Senate by aligning with people who will help publicize his race. Maybe instead of running around like their hair's on fire and twisting themselves up in knots trying to cancel Hasan Piker, the Democratic establishment could take some notes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Today, we're breaking down what the f is going on with the Hasan Piker debate and who he is, if you're like, Leeja, I've never fucking heard of this guy, and why this discussion matters deeply for the future of this country. This headline from CNN helped inform my reporting on this issue, and believe me, we are going to break down this
I didn't like A&W
panel discussion because it's a doozy. Hasan Piker tests the limits of the Democratic Party's big tent. Using the Ground News browser extension, I can get helpful background information on this publication in one quick glance.
It's too
spicy. To get the big picture, I can click on full coverage, which will show me coverage of the same story from publications across the political spectrum. My partner on today's video, Ground News, is an app and website that offers tools to help you critically analyze the news you read.
It's not like spicy, but it's I don't know how to explain
it.
Like
along at ground.news/Leeja. For every major news headline and headlines you may have missed, Ground News provides you with information
it's got like
and
a heavy flavor.
Like who owns the publication and how factual it is. To help
you just shunted me into the far right. Please block me now, you chud.
Yourself what is trustworthy and how to interpret the news. I feel empowered by Ground News by getting well-rounded insight into each headline instead of relying on a single outlet that might have underlying biases and motivations that I'm not aware of. Ground News also ensures that I never miss a headline because of my own information bubble with its blind spot feature by highlighting stories that are covered on one side of the political spectrum and not the other. Ground News is transparent about its methodology, how it assesses each story and publication, including how it uses 3 independent monitoring organizations to assess the bias rating for each
Sabrina, apologize. Yeah,
I
that's
genuinely
expected.
think the world would be a better place if everyone had this much context about the news they read. Because depending on where you or your family members get the news, you're going to get very different takes on the same story. And listen, I'm not the only one who loves Ground News. The Nobel Peace Center even called it an excellent way to stay informed, avoid echo chambers, and expand your worldview.
Well, we know what their word is worth, right?
I'm always really impressed with Ground News and genuinely think they're a great resource. If you want to stay informed on U.S. politics and more, subscribe through this QR code or my link below at ground.news/Leeja for 40% off this.
The one institution that's maybe marginally better than the FIFA Peace Prize is the Nobel Peace Committee.
Limited Access Vantage Plan. It comes out to $5 a month for unlimited access to all the features I've mentioned. Thanks, Ground News. Hasan Piker is a 34-year-old leftist content creator who mainly is known for his live streams on a live streaming website called Twitch. He got his start in the media world through his uncle Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, a left-leaning news organization.
True.
He live streams every day for 8 hours a day from his home in Los Angeles, mostly watching and commenting on the news to his over 3 million followers.
Wait, what the? That's from today. Wait, what the? Wait, what? Bro, that's what the? Wait. This video came out an hour ago. What? That was me an hour and 25 minutes in to the broadcast. Oh my gosh, she cooked me. You know how I say Piker Broadcasting News for tomorrow's news today? She did that to me. What the hell? What the hell? Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow, that's crazy.
Followers on Twitch, and then reposting clips of the live streams across other his views have been described as far left, socialist, Marxist. He tends to espouse anti-imperialist, pro-worker, pro-Palestinian ideology. So of course he's been labeled a major threat by the Democratic establishment. As recently laid out in a great opinion piece in The Guardian by Bhaskar Sankara, quote, Representative Brad Schneider branded Piker an unapologetic anti-Semite. Michigan's own Senator Alyssa Slotkin, a former Pentagon official, weighed in with her condemnation, as did Representative Haley Stevens, one of El Sayed's primary rivals. Another opponent, Mallory McMorrow, went so far as to liken Piker to Nick Fuentes, a white supremacist who has enthusiastically praised Adolf Hitler on camera. When Politico came calling, both Cory Booker and Ruben Gallego rushed to declare they would refuse an invitation to appear on Piker's stream.
Not my go Rahm Emanuel, though. He said he'd be on.
Again, at a time when we're begging anyone in the Democratic establishment to do anything to stop the onslaught of horrific atrocities being committed by our government, they are instead like, hey, we need to cancel this progressive Twitch streamer. This speaks volumes to two things. One, the extent to which our entire political and media establishment is bought out by Israel and AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, which I'll get into, and two, the power that modern political commentators on social media have in America today. Maybe I'm biased, but I think I'm right. First, the primary objections that people have to Hasan Piker seem to stem from some controversial things he has said at various points throughout his career. Here's Dana Bash on CNN talking about it as though someone from AIPAC is holding a gun to her head just off screen.
Here's some of what he actually has said about the depravity of the October 7th attack, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the, quote, it doesn't matter if effing happened on October 7th. Like,
handsome photo alert.
The dynamic for me. The Palestinian resistance is not perfect. Now, let that sink in. Hasan Piker is excusing sexual violence by Hamas. He also claims Hamas is, quote, 1,000 times better than Israel. Hamas is a designated organization.
Notice how there's no retaliation to that statement other than just going, well, this is organization. This is organization. This is organization. Okay, what does that say about Israel then? What does that say about Israel? That you can't even defend the most moral nation on the planet Earth, Israel, against such a silly accusation without just going, oh, it's an organization. What does that say about Israel? Okay, that I made a statement that a state-sponsored or a state-designated organization is 1,000 times better than Israel, and you couldn't retort. You could not explain that Israel is not 1,000 times worse than a state-designated organization. Because it's true, Israel is worse. The only fault at this point is that it's not 1,000 times worse. It's probably more than 1,000 times worse. But, you know.
Not just by the U.S., but by the EU, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, just to name a few. And here's what Piker said about the horrors of September 11th, 2001.
America deserved 9/11, dude. F it. I'm saying.
Winning the shower argument right now, me? Shower argument? Buddy, I won the argument without even being a part of the argument. The moment that you don't have a retort to that statement, when you control the conversation, because she could just as easily have me on a panel. You know, I'm an accessible guy, right? I'm live all day, every day.
Like we can totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy shit. We did. We fucking did.
Now, Piker did later call that comment inappropriate and said he didn't mean Americans deserved to die.
Let that sink in. Dana Bash is comfortable with Israel taking the entirety of Gaza.
They say walked it back, and you literally say we brought it upon ourselves in the same clip. I know. No one ever, they hear the 9/11 part, and then they just like laser in on it.
Retribution for the crimes of a few Hamas, crimes that Israelis also commit against Palestinians at staggering numbers. There is no question that Hamas engages in activities, and Hasan's flippant language around sexual violence is absolutely condemnable. But the global hypocrisy is also staggering, and something so much bigger than one person live streaming from his bedroom in Los Angeles. Hamas is condemned globally as an organization, and the atrocities its militants carried out on October 7th, including alleged, some of which have been debunked, have been pointed to as key evidence evidence justifying this terrorist designation. Yet, at the same time, Israel is a legitimate state that deserves to exist and be protected. This despite a UN report from last year that found, quote, Israel has increasingly employed sexual, reproductive, and other forms of gender-based violence against Palestinians as part of a broader effort to undermine their right to self-determination and carried out genocidal acts through the systematic destruction of sexual and reproductive healthcare facilities. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is very important to pay attention to who is being called a terrorist and who isn't, and by whomst. Israel violently colonizes land that is already occupied, creates a genocidal apartheid state. Both sides commit atrocities and violence against each other. One is a designated terrorist organization and the other is a state that has the right to self-determination. But you are not allowed to point that out in this country because every single politician and mainstream news organization is bought and sold by Israel and AIPAC. And so they lob the anti-Semitic accusation around and fearmonger anyone who might step out of line and speak out against the well-documented atrocities committed by Israel. The Hasan Piker problem is that he's outside this web of control and yet has amassed a lot of political power in this country because no one watches or trusts mainstream media anymore. Case in point, that CNN panel. I think it's also a testament to Hasan Piker's influence, the fact that he forced Dana Bash to contend with, on this CNN panel, the idea of Hamas as a terrorist org to begin with. For the longest time, we weren't even debating that. We weren't even debating Israel's legitimacy, at least not on the scale that we are now. And that has put a target on Hasan Piker's back, which I think is the age-old problem for famous leftist activists in this country. Actual avowed anti-Semites, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, skinheads, the KKK, far-right conspiracy theorists, they're running around successfully advocating for actual violence, and the people in the highest rungs of power are worried about a guy who's pro-worker.
I think it says a lot about the state of affairs and where the majority is at this point that Leeja Miller is speaking convincingly on an issue that pertains to American foreign policy. Like look, Leeja Miller is great. Big fan of her, right? But in most circumstances, I think a lot of Americans, no matter how progressive they are, when it comes to anti-imperialist sentiment or when it comes to like identifying why resistance groups form, why they fight, or sometimes like the actions that they engage in that are obviously outside of the confines of international humanitarian law, most liberals and most Americans in general will turn around and say, nope, these guys are irredeemable, they're monsters, without factoring in how they got to that point, without factoring in why these acts of desperation are taking place. Okay? You have to remember that. Like, I've had these sorts of conversations for years. As a matter of fact, a big part of why so many people are frustrated and so many people have become like lifelong haters of mine is because they come into this community, they see me advocate for, workers' rights, advocate for like domestic issues that they completely agree with, and then they hear my perspective on foreign policy, on American foreign policy being objectively evil, and they lose their minds because that has, in my experience, been the most solid social conditioning for every single American, regardless of how progressive they perceive themselves to be. On the domestic front, you can hear Americans say that they're even socialists, right? But when it comes to American foreign policy, when push comes to shove, a lot of Americans have this assessment that it's far better that America, at the end of the day, is in some way, shape, or form, the de facto world police, because God forbid someone else takes that position, it'll be far more violent, right? Like that's an attitude. That is usually a very sincere attitude demonstrated by a lot of Americans. Okay, now that's changing. That is truly changing. Part of that is because of Israel and our seeming our overt bipartisan support for Israel. Post October 7, the genocide was conducted and defended by the Democratic Party and then continued by the Republican Party. People saw the horrifying things that Israel was doing to the Palestinian civilian population, and they were shocked, right? They could not comprehend that like this good force, this force for good. America does evil things every now and then, but they're doing it for some overall good purpose, that went away. That went away. People started to contend with the reality that maybe America, especially as long as they maintain this allegiance with Israel, is maybe not a force for good, right? That, in my experience, has always been the hardest bridge to cross with many like-minded individuals, okay? That's part of the reason why it's one of the most like resilient counters against me from not only the likes of Steven Crowder and you know Ben Shapiro and numerous other right-wing, far-right figureheads. They say Hasan says America bad. Why don't you fucking leave this country if you hate it so much? This thought-terminating retort. But it's also been one of the most resilient counters from even liberals, NATO Atlanticists, NatSec liberals, people who call themselves like Lockheed liberals, you know, people like that. Those people see my commentary on American violence, and they also engage in this thought-terminating cliche that, oh, you're just saying that because you hate America. You just hate America. You say America bad, you don't ever explain why, even though I do, right? And they never factor in or consider that I want America to be good. That's my advocacy. I want America to be good to its own people, and I want America to be good to other countries, right? But they don't want to contend with that. They don't want to comprehend that. They have no intellectual curiosity until now. Things have changed, right? Things have changed. People are far more open-minded to the notion that maybe we are a malignant force. Maybe we are not the force for good, the world police that most people learned, most people are socially conditioned into believing. Trump has also played a big role in this as well. He's a repulsive, monstrous, rapist figure, and he talks like a rapist in many respects when he's talking about what he's going to do to other countries. That is perhaps the most honest expression of American imperialism, though. He says the quiet part out loud. And I think because there is no intellectualized liberal patina associated with the American foreign policy decision-making process now, all of a sudden Americans are forced to contend with that reality. They hear what Trump is saying, and either they say, well, sucks to suck, fuck all those other countries, let's get that oil, or they're forced to think, wait a minute, I did think America was the world police, and it was good that we were engaging in all these interventions overseas, but it turns out maybe it wasn't for good at all. Maybe I was lied to. And more Americans are coming to terms with that reality. Okay?
An anti-imperialist who said a few problematic things about Israel and 9/11. They compare him to Nick Fuentes as though that's a fair comparison. One man is advocating for socialism and workers' rights and in favor of the marginalized and against billionaires. The other one openly denies that the Holocaust ever happened. Yeah. Because the terrorists on the far right, the ones who actually carry out far more extremist violence than the left ever does, their terrorism is directed towards minorities. A person like Hasan Piker, someone who advocates for working people, for minorities, against the American imperialist experiment, he is genuinely a terrorist in the eyes of the 1%. To them, his ideas bring them terror. And that's the only kind of terror our establishment cares about. The terror of the 1%. Because people like Hasan are advocating for them to be wiped off the face of the earth. To the 1%, taxes and regulations are their own personal genocide. Their existence as billionaires can't withstand the types of ideas that a person like Hasan Piker advocates for. So that is what those in power are going to find most threatening and attempt to shut down, and they always have. And I think Hasan Piker and the debate we're having over him, as fucking annoying as all of this is, I think it's good for America. Now let me be clear about my own stance on Hasan. Does Hasan Piker present his ideas in a tactful, palatable way? Absolutely not. I find Hasan Piker to be incredibly off-putting most of the time. He reminds me of the guys I majored in poli-sci with in college who would talk over me at parties. I don't like the way he speaks to his audience. I don't agree with the brazen, insensitive way he talks about these issues. And I think live streaming lends itself really well to running your mouth and saying shit you later regret. That being said, Hasan has watched numerous of my videos on his live stream and only had nice things to say, and I appreciate that. And I think, for better or for worse, whether you like his content or not, Hasan Piker is meeting the people of America.
I think this does genuinely stem from, I mean, she's not wrong, right? Like, if you have seen an assortment of like all of my most angry moments, right? Like all my angriest moments, you're going to come to that conclusion. there's two problems, of course. She's not wrong if you see those compilations, and those compilations exist, and perhaps those compilations are what most people see because no one's going to sit through a whole ass live stream, right? So that's the correct part of this, right? So I don't get mad at people for having that assessment. Okay? The other thing I will say is that the media medium that I operate in makes it virtually impossible to conduct yourself in any other way, shape, or form. Because remember, we talked about this yesterday as well. I have spoken about politics for more than 21,000 hours. More than 21,000 hours of wall-to-wall political commentary, and not just political commentary, but political commentary in an interactive medium. A political commentary on issues that are very sensitive, political commentary on issues that are sensitive with an interactive audience from a perspective that most Americans have either never encountered, okay, especially when I first started, this wasn't, there was no popular, robust socialist movement in this country, right? Let alone anti-imperialism, but also a position that carries a lot of baggage, right? Carries a lot of baggage because people have been primed into hating. People have been primed into hating this idea. They've been taught that like socialism, anti-imperialism, this is anti-America behavior, anti-America activity. This is a devastating wrong. It's perhaps even scarier than Nazism. That's a thing that a lot of liberals will say too, right? Add to that the Nazification of Twitter in the exchange of ownership in the hands of Elon Musk and clip culture acceleration. And it's a given that there will be this level of resentment and this many people who spend a good deal of time and a good deal of effort for free in tarnishing what I'm trying to do and consistently attacking me to great success, right? Just admit that you have a short fuse. Stop excusing yourself. It's okay. No, I already have admitted that I have a short fuse, but see, you're doing it right now. Of course, I have a short fuse as well. What I'm simply saying is it is virtually impossible. If you've spent a long enough time in this chat, you've already understood that, right? It's virtually impossible for any human being not to have angry moments in an interactive medium where I'm talking about politics, highly sensitive subjects that are very deep and personal for a lot of people, from a perspective and a framework that most Americans are either oblivious to or antagonistic to. That's part of the reason why a lot of people that are in the media space will look to what I'm doing and go, how the fuck have you not been killed already? How have you not killed yourself already? It's unbelievable.
Where they're at in a way nothing else on the left has managed to do. And of course, I don't mean all the people in America. I mean young men in America. The demographic everyone was most wringing their hands over during the
Gaming gangsta for life. I subscribe to just say you're full of shit, you're an asshole. Just say some accountability, dude. See, this is what I mean. Two questions come to mind for, every single person in here, right? And I'm going to stop responding to people who are obviously trying to piss me off right now after this. Two questions come to mind. Think about that you have spent on God's green earth the last 21,000 hours that you've been alive. Now imagine if there was a camera on it at every point and a lot of people that were watching that feed specifically to see something that you said and professionally misunderstand it, right? How many awful moments would you have in that situation? It's normal. We're all human beings. We have weak moments sometimes. We have angry moments sometimes, right? Of course, there would be hundreds of instances, right? Think about disagreements that you've had with loved ones or disagreements that you've had with people you hate. Think about the shit that you've talked about people that you hate in the 21,000 hours, in the last 21,000 hours. Now imagine if the rest of the world saw that. Right? It's impossible. This person is currently demonstrating how easily this stuff works. If you had to deal with a guy like this, add to that the interactive component, right? People coming in here, spending money, hard-earned cash, to be like, you're a fucking piece of shit. You're condescending. I don't like your style. I don't like your optics. And you're rude. And you're an asshole. Just take some accountability, dude. You know, times that by 1,000, you probably fucking lose your mind, right? I'm a 38-year-old engineer. I've streamed. I'm not a little kid, bro. You're an asshole with an ego. I still fuck with you. Bro, I watch you every day. There's no excuses for being rude just because you're stressed out. Stop with the cope. Please just drop this and accept the critique. This is why I said I'm done with this after. Because many of you have been in here for a long enough time. You've seen this happen already. Someone could have the absolute worst fucking position of all time that anyone has ever come up with. And there will be at least like 50 other chatters that go, actually, this person is delivering scathing critique that is constructive that you should abide by. That person called me a fucking asshole, rude, condescending. How is that? How is that constructive critique, chatter? I don't understand. Anyway, let's continue.
2024 election. The demographic we're all still wringing our hands over. I, like many people, recently watched Louis Theroux's new documentary, Inside the Manosphere. If you haven't seen it, journalist and documentarian Louis Theroux interviews various men who create content and who are part of the manosphere, a loosely connected cohort of content creators who talk about being red-pilled in the Matrix, how to be real men, and how to be an alpha male, how to get women, how to look max, how to look as hot as possible. And I learned in the documentary
they also fail at that, let's be real.
So how to make money while you sleep by joining their Signal chat and downloading the stock trading apps they get commissions from by convincing their followers to join. The promise is that if you follow these men, they'll teach you how to be rich and handsome and get women. It speaks to this moment where the American dream is dead. It's harder than ever to provide for yourself, let alone a whole family. Men are isolated and lonely. Women no longer need them. And so they're turning to someone for guidance, for inspiration, to tell them how to get what they want, to explain to them why they feel so shitty. And the manosphere offers them the antidote. Many of these content creators live stream from their mansions in Ibiza or Miami, and a common form of content is them walking down the streets hitting on women or pulling off more and more shocking stunts to get views and likes and virality. And if you watch Hasan Piker's content and then you watch this Inside the Manosphere documentary, there are shades of the manosphere in Hasan Piker's content. And before you think that I'm trying to cancel Hasan Piker, let me explain myself. Hasan Piker is brazen and often says things that have really high shock value, much like men of the manosphere content creation universe who rely on doing drastic or shocking shit to get views and clicks. Both attract attention. One is harassing women on the street or getting into physical altercations, while the other is calling into question America's imperialist warmongering by saying we deserved 9/11. Hasan Piker often takes his live streams on the road, followed by a cameraman and accompanied by his entourage. He's usually wearing a lot of jewelry and expensive-looking clothes. The same happens in the manosphere. One group is wandering around the streets of Miami hitting on women. The other is exploring communist China or the blockade on Cuba. Both are creating content for the same generation of men. One is perpetuating toxic tropes of masculinity and the patriarchy and reinforcing the glorification of the military-industrial complex and sending more and more men down the capitalist pipeline. If you just work hard enough, you can be like me, and you should value money and power above everything.
Optics lip shit? No, you're missing the point. She's literally saying she's saying that even from an optical standpoint, the style and the aesthetics are obviously successful in reaching a lot of young men, except one, like, she's not criticizing the style and aesthetics. She's saying that I have a similar style and similar aesthetics, using it as a force for good, versus those guys do all that shit and a lot more, really. And they do that to predate on young men in this gross way where they shove them down the right-wing pipeline.
Else. The other Hasan Piker is uplifting marginalized voices, breaking down ethno-religious supremacist ideologies, speaking out forcefully against the billionaire class, and questioning the imperialist nature of the United States as a whole in a way that speaks to young men and meets them where they're at. You might not be comfortable with the way in which men under 40 consume content, the content that they like, the tactics used to communicate with them, with the world as it is right now. That's okay. This content isn't for you. But the reality is that this is the world. This is the world the internet has created, for better or for worse. And I would sure as shit prefer young men to be questioning the geopolitical world order with Hasan Piker than learning how to hit on women on the Miami waterfront. You know what I mean? And this speaks to a larger issue with the Democratic Party, one that Naomi Klein lays out really well in her book Doppelganger, and that is that Democrats have a tendency to bury their heads in the sand and ignore the way things are, the real genuine issues people have with the system, instead of figuring out how to fit them within their larger tent. And Republicans and far-right conspiracy theorists are able to step in and fill that void. For example, anti-vaxxing and objections to COVID-era mandates, at least in part, come from a place of truth. It is not irrational or unfounded to question the pharmaceutical industry in this country, an industry that has profited off our death and off keeping us sick. Instead of acknowledging that, and that there are regulatory issues, and that there's good reasons why.
I think it's also good to hear from this perspective as well, because this is one that I'm also very aware of, right? Like the way I look, the way I carry myself, the way I talk can be off-putting for a lot of people. Like what she said about how I carry myself reminds her of all like the annoying men in her life that she has had to experience is absolutely something that I've heard from even many of you, right? Like it took a lot. Like I've heard this is one of the most common critiques I hear from, especially a lot of leftists, right? Leftists, they're empathetic. They're very sensitive in many instances, right? And they've had a lot of lived experience with and negative experiences with people who look like me, who sound like me. Okay. So there is this automatic, like what is seen for many as this interesting juxtaposition for a lot of young men specifically. It is seen as an interesting juxtaposition, a guy who works out, a guy who, wears nice clothes, but isn't a fucking right-wing reactionary shithead. That brashness, vulgarity, the way I look, that can be a major setback for a lot of people. And a lot of people openly and readily admit that, where they'll be like, I didn't watch you for the longest time because from afar, I thought you were just like a condescending douchebag frat bro. Right? It's true. You're giving yourself too much credit, bro. What do you mean? Centrist in her comments are seething about her defending you, Lamau. Yeah.
People might distrust Big Pharma.
Yeah, I'm the king of walk like a chug, think like a woke.
The establishment left wrote anti-vaxxers off as nutjobs and continued to cozy up to pharmaceutical lobbyists, giving the far right an opportunity to swoop in and win over anti-vaxxers by acknowledging the truth that sent them down that pipeline to begin with. You're right. There is something fishy about how pharmaceutical companies operate in this country. That wins over trust that then becomes easy to exploit with lies and conspiracies. The same is true of young men and the manosphere. The manosphere is capitalizing on something that is true. Young men in this country are not okay. The economy is rigged against all of us. The patriarchy hurts everyone and makes them feel horrible about themselves because they can't be providers anymore. And the manosphere acknowledges that truth and then sends them down the toxic pipeline. You're right. Life is really hard. You are being exploited. That wins over trust that then becomes easy to exploit with lies and conspiracies. The manosphere tells them the way to win back your agency is through stocks and emotionally abusing women. Hasan Piker tells them that actually the billionaire class is the reason why your life sucks. Young men are seeking this shit out online, whether we like it or not. And they're not seeking it out from mainstream media. They're not seeking it out from even someone like me, a leftist, yes, but someone who's a lot more measured and doesn't do or say things that go particularly viral and is also a woman in her 30s. So sorry, but
I got bullied a lot of my school career from the bro types I've been watching for years now. My hackles still flare up when you go bro mode, but that's the only real issue I have with you, and that's not your problem. Yeah. Well, thank you for being able to, overlook that. I mean, that's just who I am, too. That's just the other side of the story, right? Like, I'm always going to be honest and authentic with who I am. It's also impossible for me not to be because I'm live every day for 8 hours a day. I can't put on a fucking front, okay? I can't put on a front, and I can't fake it. This is just who I am. I would have to dramatically alter my character, my personality, things I believe in even, to be able to do that.
not particularly intriguing to 20-year-old men, and I'm really okay with that. That's just the reality of the situation. And I don't know about you, but I'd far prefer a world where they jump onto the leftist Hasan Piker train than the manosphere death spiral. I think that's a net positive for America. And yet, the establishment Democrats, the legacy media, would rather shoot themselves in the foot than acknowledge that they need Hasan Piker in their tent. They would rather throw their weight behind attempting to cancel him than attempting to understand what it is about him that speaks to a base of people that they have been clamoring to win over.
These content creators do not understand your audience isn't watching their content because 75% of their content is critiquing the left or punching left. Why would we watch condescending liberals? What do you mean? Are you talking about all the hater content out there? I mean, I think there's a lot of people who do actually love that drama shit.
Young men. They all of a sudden demand purity, to never associate with anyone who's ever said anything objectionable, while openly and vociferously supporting Israel, an apartheid state actively committing genocide while the world watches. Instead of attempting to figure out how to actually fit the entire left wing of this country in their tent, which is their burden in our fucked up two-party system, which would require acknowledging differences, having hard conversations.
What? People are asking you to be humble, not cure cancer and create world peace. It is just asking you to do that weird breathing thing Trump did in the 2020 election. Thank you so much for being open to the other side of this perspective. This is far more humble than most are. I think people expect you to not vice signal and be unapologetic. What? I'm confused.
Strategizing, open-mindedness, coalition building. They are once again alienating the entire left of their base, because this isn't just off-putting to Hasan Piker fans. It's off-putting to anyone outside left of center who wants to see the Democrats attempt to mend this party, take back power, and make the types of progressive changes that need to happen to ensure a Donald Trump figure. And that requires addressing the truths that Donald Trump and the right have been willing to exploit. That billionaires are amassing wealth and leaving us to fight over the scraps. That life in America is about surviving and not thriving for the vast majority of Americans. Trump promised solutions to that and of course delivered nothing, but Democrats could actually step in and increase taxes on the wealthy, provide affordable healthcare and childcare if they were willing to embrace progressive ideals and the people that come along with it. But they're not. Just like in Germany in the lead up to World War II, in America we are seeing the quote-unquote opposition party choose money over morals, cling to their elite friends, align themselves closer with the fascists than with the people, while just playing lip service to the concerns of the masses and doing nothing about anything, and then throwing us all under the bus in order to keep their power. So the discussion over Hasan Piker is about so much more than what we do with this leftist guy who live streams all day. It is a microcosm of how fucking broken this country is.
This is what I mean. This is absolutely correct. This is exactly what I've been trying to get across as well for these past 2 weeks, where the smear campaign and the manufactured outrage has exploded. It's the very fact that so many mainstream outlets from CNN to Fox News are predisposed with this silly shit is already an indication that something is busted. Okay, something is completely broken in our media ecosystem. But then on top of that, I think the real reason why it's happening is because these guys can no longer control. They don't have the same stranglehold that they had on the dissemination of all information. And they've lost the narrative battle on Israel and on even maybe American imperialism. There's deep skepticism against mainstream outlets. So instead of constantly yelling and shitting on the public and coming across as even more annoying and even losing the remainder of the people that tune in, they are trying to identify a vulgar representation of that broad base and try to humiliate me and bully me into submission. But the reason why they're doing that, the reason why they're trying to aggressively attack me is because they can't really attack everyone else. Another thing is communicating the way you do makes the learning process far more entertaining. Watch politics for 8 hours for not for everyone. You make it funny and interesting and educational. Yeah, that too. What is this? Tweet deleted. These guys actually do have the correct amount of paranoia. Becoming a political pariah is a slippery slope that ends in a pit of bad consequences. They just can't wrap their heads around these consequences coming from Israel's own choices. Some people do understand that, by the way, because this is not, I mean, it kind of sounds silly to say this because I keep repeating that I'm a fucking Twitch streamer. It's ridiculous, but they are choosing to make me into this like representative figure of all of the left demands and left forces of politics in this country. That's part of the reason why I said you also have to fucking sometimes do something that I've never asked you to do, which is to, defend what people are saying. As a matter of fact, for the longest time, I've always said, I'm just a Twitch streamer. Just argue on the issues, right? If you want to convince people to argue on the issues, you don't have to fucking defend me. But now, mainstream sources are turning me into the expression, the purest expression and the manifestation of like left-wing politics. Now, obviously, for a lot of liberals, like that's fantastic because then they can just consistently demand to cut me out of the equation. And that right now, there's a lot of liberals who are anti-communist, anti-socialist, a lot of reactionaries, a lot of people who are pro-Israel, pro-genocide that are actively trying to go, see, this guy's a real threat. You should just not talk to him. You should listen to me instead. There's like people who are self-interested. It's not going to work, right? Most people understand that if it wasn't me, it'd be whoever else is in my place. But it's not just about me. It's about people like Zoran. It's about people like AOC. It's about Bernie Sanders. It's about Abdul El-Sayed, right? Your irrelevance as a Twitch streamer also removes a lot of the downside of going at you so hard. If they lobbed a lot of the criticism they say about you directly at people like Abdul El-Sayed, normies would see it as distasteful, but because they don't really know you, normies are less repulsed by criticism of you. Yeah, I'm just a stand-in. It's not about you. You're just a caricature stand-in for progressives and leftists in the USA. This mirror against you isn't meant for you. It's meant for normal people who are sick of the duopoly in the system that both Dems and Republicans protect. They think gutting and blocking you out will shut critics of them up. Yeah, and it won't work.
That we cannot even fathom how to include actual leftist progressive ideas that would actually help the masses into our national political conversation. That we equate leftist progressivism as just as extreme and therefore bad as far-right extremism, as though they're equally at the same distance.
How do you know it won't work? Because the structure is different. The structure is different. Because let's say they sufficiently cut my ties with like every candidate that I am associating myself with. What changes? Does your anger change? Do your demands change? Are you going to, let's say I no longer appear with a single other political figure ever again from this day on. Is that going to somehow destroy my political career, destroy my stream? No. It's not even something that people look forward to. Like a lot of the candidate interviews and things like that are not exactly things that people look forward to anyway. Most people tune out when I do stuff like that. It's considered boring. It's too like, it's too mainstream, right? Most people just want me to sit here and fucking yell at the camera. So it doesn't even have a negative impact. If I were to stop doing that, it would probably have even a positive impact from an analytics point of view. But then also, the other side of the story is, even if I didn't associate with candidates openly, I'd still promote them. I'd still support them. So there's that, as long as they're doing the right things. And let's say they take it one step further. Let's say they actually deplatform me, right? It's over. I lose the Twitch stream and I'm banned from every fucking platform, every social media platform. That sucks for me, right? But will your attitude change? Will you magically turn around and say, you know what? American imperialism was good, actually. America should be the world police. What Israel is doing is actually righteous. Now that Hasan Piker is no longer allowed to stream, I'm really reconsidering how critical I was of the most moral nation on earth, Israel. Of course not. That's why I'm saying like this is unproductive and idiotic. You know, these guys are wrong for identifying me as trying to attack me this way, because I don't hold all of that power. I am, at the end of the day, a fucking megaphone. I'm a megaphone for you. I'm a platform for your frustrations. And in certain instances, I can play the role of an educator. I can help you realize who is responsible for all the pain that you experience. right? But most of the time, I'm just a fucking platform for the frustration that I know the overwhelming majority of Americans feel, experience, and can be convinced of. That last part is also important because a lot of people are angry, but they don't know who is responsible for their pain, okay? The right recognizes that. They see the anger and frustration, and then they take that anger and frustration and then redirect it to vulnerable populations. They say it's trans people. They say it's undocumented migrants. They say it's black and brown people. They say our enemies overseas hate us. They must be put down. Okay? And that is objectively successful for them. I choose to do the exact opposite. I choose to take that anger and frustration, recognize it, and then redirect it to the actual entities that are responsible for it. That's it. That's why I say it's impossible to successfully destroy me, because your frustrations will still exist. That's real. Your demands will still exist. That's real. It's just. It's good that you have those demands. It's righteous.
Ends of the political spectrum. Despite the fact that in many countries in Europe, there are people who espouse very similar values to Hasan Piker, whose democratic socialist parties are seen as center-left. Much like who and what we deem to be terrorists is dictated by bias and power dynamics, what we deem to be extremist political ideology in this country is also seriously biased and skewed. To characterize someone like Hasan Piker as extremist in the same way that someone like Nick Fuentes is extremist is an irresponsible, willful mischaracterization that is motivated by the same pro-capitalist, pro-billionaire bullshit that has gotten us into this situation to begin with. And the Democratic establishment is doing nothing but further alienating people when it attempts to cancel Hasan Piker and any progressive candidate who dares go near him. And of course, there's also fretting about what about the centrists? What about the independents? It's true, there is a huge swath of this country that isn't particularly interested in quote-unquote progressive policies that do find Hasan Piker to be too extreme and may themselves be alienated by his ideas and past statements. What do we do about them? As with a lot of issues with the Democratic Party, this comes down to a messaging and strategy problem, something the Democrats notoriously fucking suck at. Of course, you don't bring Hasan Piker into every single room. He is a particular person who speaks to a particular demographic. You gotta know your audience, and you have to mold your message accordingly. And this is something that I think Bernie Sanders has mastered. You don't label shit progressive or far left or politically extreme. You just actually listen to people and what they want, and you provide them with solutions that make them excited about you.
To be fair, I can do that too. I can talk to and often do talk to normal liberals and identify what their frustrations look like in a way that that they can, you know, in a way that there is some sort of like productive outlet for them to. Obviously not my most heated moments over the course of 21,000 hours, but
candidate. And the solution tends to be get money out of politics and raise taxes on the 1% to help fund the government. Those are negatively labeled as progressive ideas, but they shouldn't be. Leveling the playing field for people so that billionaires can't rig the entire game isn't a progressive idea. It's pro-democracy. It just seems that there's zero creativity in these washed up, dusty Democratic strategists out there that they just cannot come up with a single way to get people excited about voting for Democrats. The only reason we're excited to show up and vote for Democrats in the midterms in November is because we're desperate for something less awful than this. The only reason I was excited to vote for Kamala Harris in 2024 was because she wasn't Trump and seemed less likely to completely fuck up the entire country and world order during her presidency. Can you imagine a Democratic candidate actually presenting you with ideas that you could get excited about because the ideas themselves are good? I mean, that's what happened in New York City. I said this last episode. Zohran Mamdani didn't harp on about how bad his opponents were. He presented a really exciting vision for what New York City could be. And yes, he even appeared on Hasan Piker's live stream. And what do you know? Doesn't love Hasan Piker. It was one tactic of many that he used to actually talk to New Yorkers and understand who they listen to and what they care about and meet them where they were at. He didn't just talk to Hasan Piker. He talked to a lot of people. What's wild and crazy about being a politician is you actually have to communicate with and find compromise with people you don't agree with 100% of the time. That's actually a necessary piece of politicking. Zohran Mamdani did it candidate while also seeming likable, approachable, and reasonable. And the Democratic Party demonized him for that too. Because again, they would rather cancel the candidate with the progressive ideas in order to align themselves with elite interests every single time. Which is why most Democrat Party candidates are fucking creeps who seem so completely disconnected from actual real life. They're not put in place for us. They're put in place by the elite interests who want to control the narrative and keep their power. So when someone like Hasan Piker comes along who cannot be controlled and in fact seems to revel in shaking things up and pissing people off, and then a candidate like Dr. Abdul El-Sayed actually dares to bring Hasan into the fold.
I'm just going to say, Al-Zoran, the majority of my fellow frequent canvassers for him were HasanAbi has law. Hell yeah. That's right.
And treat him like the influential political actor he is, has to swoop in and nip that in the bud before it gets so out of control that people start actually learning about, understanding, and wanting these extremist progressive ideals. Until we vote these elitist creeps out of office and find better alternatives, this is what we're stuck with in this country. And the way things are going, it is people like Hasan Piker who are going to have to do the actual political work of convincing people that progressive ideas actually aren't that extreme after all. If you'd like to support my work, consider joining on YouTube, Substack, or Patreon
Leeja
to get
Miller,
access
Marxist
to all these
Leninist
episodes
arc
completely
when?
ad-free.
Immediately.
And if you like my Rag and Learn Everything t-shirt,
Tomorrow. Saul, babacım. The goats defended you too, time-stamped. Matt Gaetz, there's a coordinated campaign to slander you. What is this? The goats? The establishment Dems versus the new era?